everyone. I'm Jess, and I'm the content manager here at Course Report. Course Report is the resource for helping people find the right coding boot camps for them. At Course Report, you can research the best coding boot camps all over the world, find out which technical skills to learn, where to apply, and how to fund your very own boot camp experience. Today, I'm so happy to have Darren Pavel joining us to talk about his own bootcamp experience and what it means to be a modern engineer. So Darren is a Codesmith grad from 2023 and now works as a software engineer too at Amazon Web Services. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today, Darren. You have a lot of tech experience and before enrolling at a coding bootcamp last year. So I was wondering, why did you decide to enroll at a coding boot camp at this point in your career?
So I have a lot of coding experience from over a decade ago. I began my career in 2006, and in 2012, I had my daughter, who was 1 year old at the time. I stepped out of the workforce to be a stay-at-home dad, and I was there until 2023. So with about 11 years of lag, that's a lot of time in tech, I felt I needed some way to boost myself back in. I had experience with JavaScript from doing some web development work before, but a lot of the technologies and a lot of the libraries that were used were brand new to me. So I thought this would be a great way to brush up skills and to get some good experience in before I applied for jobs and found myself lagging behind.
And Darren, there are so many coding boot camps out there now. What stood out about Codesmith? What set their program apart?
So I did a lot of internet research along with my wife. We liked that Codesmith had a very rigorous schedule. They talked about being very intensive. We liked the rigorous schedule. We liked that there was CIRR reporting that said that they had good job prospects afterwards. We also liked the fact that they sold themselves as building software engineers, not web development engineers, not getting a job in tech, but becoming a software engineer. So I figured that there would be a broader set of skills learned from there. And I think that that was probably accurate.
And like you said, you had coding experience before joining Codesmith. So did you personally have to do any preparation before that first day in the boot camp?
Yes. So I felt the need to go through their free online JavaScript bootcamp and attend some of their courses that they offered for free to just feel it out and make sure that I was as confident coming in. During my time as a stay-at-home dad, I had done some Udemy courses and some for fun coding, using Unity, using Unreal Engine, and that was great. But I wasn't really confident that when given an actual task that I wasn't for me, wasn't something that I was doing for fun, that I would be able to perform, that I would be able to solve the task at hand.
So you are through the entire Codesmith boot camp at this point. Looking back, how did Codesmith prepare you to be a modern engineer?
So when I entered into the job market, there was a lot more reliance on libraries than I was used to before. There was a lot more words that I hadn't used, microservices. That those weren't really as big when I left the job market in 2012. Um, there was a lot more reading and documentation than I had recalled from my early days in the career. So it really helped to solidify that there were things that I didn't know, how to gain access to the resources I needed to learn those things that I did know, and to be more open-minded about what sort of solutions might exist out there.
And how would you personally describe what a modern engineer is?
So a modern engineer seems to be pulling from a lot of different sources. So there's a lot of API work, a lot of taking what has already been built and building upon it. When I was doing work in the years past, there was a lot of low-level coding, a lot of Linux knowledge. I was able to do Codesmith on a Windows desktop using, the inbuilt Linux for Windows and WSL2. That was sufficient, and it was a lot more high level, I would say. There was also a lot more architecture decisions than I recalled from my early days.
And what did you learn in the boot camp in terms of programming languages, or even certain technical skills?
So, as I mentioned earlier, my background in JavaScript was relatively weak. It was not the robust language that it is today. It wasn't used as widely. It added on top of, uh, for me, on top of PHP, but it was making your websites a little flashier. It was not building an app like Slack. It was not building an app like Discord. Um, so it grew a lot. So my skills in JavaScript certainly increased, but most importantly for me, as one of my larger projects in Codesmith, I worked with Apache Kafka. That is very similar technology to what I'm working with right now. And I don't think that I would have ever looked down that path if I hadn't gone to Codesmith. They did a push for find a new technology and learn a lot about it. And that's certainly what I'm doing today. A brand new technology. I'm 4 months on the job and I'm still learning things every day.
That's so cool. Yeah, let's dive into the projects that you did at Codesmith. So what was this project that you had to build?
So we didn't have to build this particular project. We got to choose a technology and then we pitched some ideas for what we could do with it, what we would want to build. And we chose to use Apache Kafka, which is a messaging service. Moves a lot of messages from a lot of different sources to a lot of different people who want to read those messages. It's a complex technology, but it's also used very widely in the industry. Um, and so we wanted to have some sort of way to view the metrics for it. We knew that certain technologies existed out there, like Confluent, to sort of determine how your Kafka's broker was working. They were very heavy. They also relied on, as I said, other libraries like Grafana. And we wanted to be able to read directly from our broker itself using the JMX endpoints, little bits of Java that was exposed to us to say like, oh, this is how many messages I'm reading. This is how many bytes are moving through me. So we use that in combination with JavaScript to create an application that would show the metrics of your broker at any given time.
And in your time at Codesmith, did you cover any AI or machine learning in the curriculum?
No, AI and machine learning was being added as my boot camp was winding down.
Mm.
We were given opportunities to do AI courses afterwards. They would not have been any charge to us. I think they recognized as it was growing as we were leaving. Um, However, my first job afterwards was building an API that was going to connect to some AI. Initially, it was going to be Palm, or what is now Gemini. Went from Palm, Google Palm to Google Bar to Gemini, and we ended up using ChatGPT instead. We were just happier with the results there. So, because I was getting that hands-on experience to learn, and because I had a job that was taking a lot of time, I chose not to do the AI and machine learning courses that they offered.
Let's talk about your instructors. What were they like, and were they what you would classify as like a modern software engineer?
They were all very knowledgeable. They were all extremely helpful. They all did encompass that modern engineer of going out and learning and diving deep into some sort of subject and bringing themselves up to speed and building some tool without fear that this is complex or I don't know how. Yeah, I think that they were modern engineers.
And let's talk about the career services portion. You mentioned that the CIR outcomes are really important in your decision in choosing Codesmith. So when it came time to get you ready for the tech job hunt, what kinds of services did they offer?
So they offered weekly meetings, sort of to give you confidence to continue forward and to work through all the strain and struggle of applying and getting no response, or applying and rejecting, or applying and taking a test and getting passed over. They also did continue to offer support for how to write a resume, how to write to fill out an application, how to behave within an in-person interview, whether that's a technical interview or a behavioral interview, that sort of thing. They offered a good number of resources for that. The biggest support that I got was the camaraderie offered by previous alum,
Mm.
people who had either graduated recently from a different course at the same time, or even people who were Coast with alums who had left, gone into the job market, and we're now looking to go to a new job. And we're willing to communicate and offer help and to do mock interviews with you and to provide their own sort of information. The alumni network, I feel, has been fantastic.
That's awesome because as you mentioned, the job hunt can just be so emotional and draining. So it's great to hear that Codesmith has that community there for people like yourself to get in touch with.
I was looking at primarily senior level positions. Yes, I was also looking at what sort of positions were out there that
Mm.
looked interesting for me to do. So I did apply to some mid-level positions that were offering the experience that I was looking for, whether that was in AI or whether that was in some sort of service. I interviewed with a company that was working with the Defense Department. My dad was in the military. And I thought, even though this isn't a senior level position, I'd like to help them build their product. So it was mainly senior level, but I did search outside of that. It was all mid level or senior level, though.
And it's been a pretty topsy-turvy job market, tech job market the past year or so. And you picked up some contract roles. So I'd love to know, like, what did you feel the benefits were of doing contract work before landing that like full-time salaried position?
The most obvious benefit is that it's paid work. So you have something on a resume, recent in the industry, that provides experience. That's something you can talk about in an interview. This is what I did recently. This is a company that I've worked for who works in this space. There's some similarities. I will say the other big thing is that contract work is generally shorter term than a full-time thing. Like there's a time limit on the contract, and it's more varied. So unless you're searching for the same contract all the time, you get the opportunity to look to a wide breadth of different areas within the industry. An API here or a website there or some styling over there or whatever it is that you're looking for at this point in time. You can do it for a short period of time and feel out if that's something you enjoy doing. Or even if you don't enjoy doing it, you at least have that experience to rely upon in the future if you encounter it again or something similar.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a great way to test drive kind of other things and other projects before you dive in to a full-time role. And now you're a software engineer too at AWS. Congrats. That's so cool. How did you end up landing this job? Was it a connection through the alumni network or through the boot camp?
Honestly, I had a recruiter reach out to me.
Oh, wow.
I don't know exactly the path that got me in front of a recruiter. I know that I had spoken with an old colleague who gave me advice on cleaning up LinkedIn, and that's how I was reached out. So there might have been some LinkedIn work, or somebody saw that I had worked with Kafka and thought I would be great for this role. Um, so I was incredibly lucky. I know that this is not the standard path to a first job, first full-time job back after 12 years. But so I feel incredibly lucky to get the opportunity and to have this role.
AWS is known for having a pretty rigorous interview process. Did you feel prepared to go through that right after Codesmith?
So my first interview in the tech industry ever was an all-day interview with Microsoft. So I had a little bit of an experience with a rigorous tech interview before, but that was all the way back in 2006. So I
Mhm.
was definitely very nervous going through the interview loop and going into the interview process as a whole. Um, I feel like the fact that I had had all that practice doing algorithms, thanks to Codesmith, thanks to the alumni network, and the technical interviews that I had practiced with other people in the alumni network, and with the job hiring portion of Codesmith's program, that I was more confident, that I was more able to put my best foot forward. I'm also glad that it was not my first job interview after leaving Codesmith.
Yeah, yeah, you had a little time to get back into the swing of things. Was AWS interested at all in your boot camp experience?
So they never brought it up to me. I did not hide it. It is there on my LinkedIn. It is part of my resume. Whoever looked at it was aware of it, but it was never brought up.
Hmm.
Um, they did ask a lot about different projects I've worked on and software that, companies that I've worked with. And I did mention the project that I've worked with Codesmith. Um, it directly relates to the work that I'm doing now. So in the effect that it had any sort of, um, or in the manner that it had any effect on my interview, I think that it was positive in that case, but I don't know.
And AWS is such a big company. So what team are you working on within it?
So I work for Kinesis Data Streams, which is very similar to Kafka. It's a messaging service that AWS offers. It's one of the lower level services that everything is built upon. So it's very the scale is daunting, and it's been a bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you said you're now 4 months in. So congrats on making it through the first couple of months. At this point, are you using what you learned at Codesmith on the job, or have you had to just like scale up and learn even more new things?
It seems like what I learned at Codesmith, both with Kafka, with the project that I did, had gave me some sort of background to help get up to speed here. The technologies are similar, so I had some background. But more than that, the ability to spend long periods of time diving deep, reading lots of different documents, coming up to speed on new technology, which is certainly one of the biggest skills that I learned from Codesmith, has allowed me to move much quicker, and I'm very thankful for that.
So looking back on this whole journey of the past year to 2 years, at this point in your career, was enrolling at Codesmith worth it for you?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I would have had the confidence to apply for the jobs that I applied for. I don't think I would have had the experience. There is something about joining a course that requires so much from you that tells you that, hey, you can work this hard. Hey, you can learn this stuff that's very foreign. Um, Certainly, when I was doing Udemy courses during my time as a stay at home parent, when things got really tough and got really difficult, there wasn't anybody or any real motivation to push through it. It, it was for fun, and when it stopped being fun, there wasn't a real motivation. So very, very glad that I did it. Very, very grateful for the experience, and I'm still in contact with the alumni network. So very, very glad for the people that I met along the way.
And I'd love to know what's your advice to incoming Codesmith students, like something that you wish you had known before day one of the boot camp.
The boot camp, it runs for a while. It's an intensive course. Often it can feel like you're sprinting because the days are long. Um, and it runs 6 days a week, but really is a marathon. So try not to burn yourself out too fast. You're there to learn. So try not to take too many shortcuts. I knew people who started off using ChatGPT to try to solve their problems, but once they set it aside and use it as support rather than to speed themselves along, they started learning a lot more. Um, AI is a very valuable resource, but don't rely on it too heavily.
Well, I feel like that's a perfect place to wrap up this Q&A session. Thanks so much for chatting with us today, Darren, and thanks so much to all of you for watching. We're going to be posting a transcript of this video interview on the Course Report blog with contact information for Codesmith, just in case you're interested in applying for any of their upcoming cohorts. And in the meantime, you can follow Course Report on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And if you're a bootcamp alumni, don't forget to post a review of your coding bootcamp experience on Course Report. Your review is a huge help to anyone who's thinking of getting into tech today.